All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the second breakout session. Sorry, had a little background noise there. Appreciate it. So today's discussion, this breakout will be Crawl, Walk, Run Your AI Journey. We're here with Dialpad. So we've got Dan Ring with 30 years of experience in the telecommunications industry. Rivera as well. He'll be doing a little bit of a demo for us with a decade of experience as well. And we've got Kevin Ruschman, the Director of IT at BM2 Freight. So we'll let Dan kick us off here and talk a little bit about this AI journey. And then we'll have an opportunity for some demos. So I know some of the feedback we've received in the past is like, this is all great. Can I see something? So that's kind of be a different flavor on this breakout session. And then some Q&A interview with Kevin and his personal experience kind of in this AI journey. So without further ado, Dan, take it away.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody coming today. So if you're looking forward to a big slide deck, you're going to be really disappointed. We're going to do a couple interviews, case studies, show some live demos. I did an exhaustive survey this past week on people's feelings about AI. I asked the pastor of our church, my wife, and my next door neighbor. I live in Akron, and he's a Goodyear blimp pilot. So I asked them, how do you feel about AI? And they said, well, I feel like it could help me in my life, in my career. I feel like maybe it could help me improve and maybe improve my communications and things like that. And I said, are you using it? And all of them basically said no. And asking why, it's because they don't know how to start that journey. It seems so daunting. And I think in our businesses, when we think about AI, we often think about this 18-month project that we buy from IBM and we pay $500,000 to get it, right? In Dialpad, what we do, and I'm going to tell you about Dialpad for probably about 90 seconds, we give bite-sized business benefits. So it's not about this big sweeping project. It's about impacting a workflow, a task, automating it, implementing AI in such a way that we're improving productivity, reducing costs. So Dialpad's journey, our founders built the first iteration of Google Voice, spun out of Google 2011. And in 2018, we bought a company. We actually merged with another Google spin-out called TalkIQ. And they were an early on AI company. And what they brought us was real-time transcription of every interaction. So basically, we do all the unified communications and contact center functions. Make a call, like RingCentral, Zoom, people like that are our competitors. So that part of the business, nothing special about us. We're just like everybody else. But we've got this infrastructure at the heart of our network. We own it all. It's our own private communication stack. We have our own natural language processing, automatic speech recognition. So we transcribe every phone conversation at every meeting. And for those of you who are CISOs, yes, we can turn it off anytime you want. But we take that transcription and we inject AI all over the place. Give you a couple thoughts on it. Like we have a service called AI CSAT. For those of you who ever called the cable company, you've been asked to do a touch-tone survey at the end of the call. The average response rate to that is about 3 or 4%. And from a business perspective, it's fundamentally useless because it's only people who are angry who respond to those things. Because we're transcribing everything, we can use AI to look at every single conversation and put a CSAT score on 100% of the calls. Why is that meaningful? Call center agent churn rates are 52% per year now. The average sales rep only stays 18 months. So how are we evaluating people? How are we managing them? How are we coaching them so that we can improve some of those stats, right? So what we're going to look at today is some bite-sized business benefits, not some big sweeping project. So we're going to talk about two companies. One is a project that Chris and Dialpad are working on right now. I can't tell you the name of the customer. And the other is BM2 Freight. So Kevin, could you tell us a little bit about BM2 Freight and your role there?
Yeah, Kevin Ruschman, the Director of IT at BM2 Freight. We are a logistics company, a 3PL for anybody that knows. So we have customers who have product that they have to move. We contract with them and we find the carriers to move the product and we facilitate that whole process for them.
So you set out on this journey, what, 2.5 years ago with us?
It probably, I think when we first reached out to ATC to start the process was about 3 years ago.
About 3 years ago. So talk to us about how the journey started. What were you looking to do back then? How did it start?
Yeah, so we were coming up on a contract with an old ShoreTel system that was bought by Mitel. It was cloud-based, but it was very legacy. The reporting on it was awful, and it barely met our minimum requirements. So we wanted to look to see what options we had. We reached out to ATC, gave them all of our requirements. They came back with 3 options that we evaluated. 2 of them, I won't name who they are. I think they might be here. But 2 of them were great products, but they just seemed like the same thing. They were, a legacy phone system that had moved to cloud that was adding some things to it. The way that I saw DialPad was it looked like, the way I described it was if someone built a UCaaS system or a phone system today, how would they build it? It didn't seem like it was built off legacy. It did meet all of our requirements, but I saw a lot more potential with it, so that's where we decided to go with it.
So what's changed? What were some of the services that you've added? And most importantly, what were the business reasons?
Yeah, so I'll start with saying that at the time, this was 2.5, 3 years ago. AI was OpenAI hadn't released GPT yet, so it wasn't the buzzword it is now. In fact, I think the big thing that DialPad was pushing was transcriptions, which we really liked. But I always saw it as something that we could grow into. And then since then, they've just released product after product. But some of the things that we've done or that we had needs that we were able to utilize AI to meet those needs were on training. Training is a big one. So we have one corporate trainer that trains any new staff that comes on, whether they're going to be sales or working with carriers or working with shippers. And a lot of 95% of the time our reps are on calls, and so we train them a lot on calls. And instead of the trainer having to go out there and email everybody and say, hey, does anybody have a call that they can remember that maybe dealt with this situation, and then trying to find that call, they can use the transcriptions. He can just search and it'll based off of keywords. He can search off of sentiment, negative sentiment, positive sentiment, off of swearing, and it will bring up those calls that he can use to help train some of the new reps on. So he can kind of hit every one of those scenarios that he wants to without having to go digging to find all of this information.
So we launched a service about a year ago called AI Playbooks that was largely built for salespeople. And these guys find a completely non-sales way to use it, and it's called AI Playbooks. So I'm a sales rep or I'm a customer service rep, I'm having a phone call or a meeting, and the playbook pops up. What is that playbook? Maybe it's BANT, budget, authority, need, and timeline. So I have 2 questions under each category. As I ask those questions as a sales rep, it checks off. It shows that I've done it. And then as my sales manager, as he's looking at my conversation and the whole team, he or she may have a dashboard that says Dan Ring is 98% adherence on playbook. Chris Knapp is 89% adherence on playbook. And recruiting firms use it, hiring managers use it, and you guys, of course, came up with a crazy way to use this. Talk some about that, because I think this is so cool.
Yeah, so it started with my compliance manager coming to me. One of the big things in my industry, many others as well, I'm sure, is fraud, dealing with fraud. And one of the things that we have a lot of times is, they call it double brokering. So we hire a carrier to pick up a load of equipment for somebody, and then they recontract it out to somebody else, and that's against all of our agreements. So that's one thing that we have to look out for. And my compliance manager came to me and said, here's what we're trying to do. Any thoughts on it? And The way that we try to prevent that fraud is we ask 2 questions anytime that we're dispatching a carrier, anytime we're sending them out to pick up freight. We ask them what the name of their truck is on the side of their door and what their MC number is, which is like the registration number. And that's to try to catch the recontracting or the subcontracting. So we had this, we're trying to think of some ideas, and I remember, all of the pitches that I had about Playbook, and it didn't really fit into our sales, but I thought, I wonder if we could figure out a way to use that. So what we're able to do is, real quick, I'll kind of explain what Playbook does, is you put in those questions, and then as they're asked, it checks them off. But the great thing about it is since it uses AI, it's not like you have to say a specific word or you have to say a sentence verbatim. It's smart enough to know that if we put in there, what is the name of the company on the side of your truck, any variation of that, it can figure out if that was asked. So we put those 2 questions in there in a few different variations, and it's able to decipher how compliant our reps are when they're dispatching, if they've asked those questions or not. And what it's allowed us to do is, instead of, from a compliance standpoint, just spot checking, we make hundreds, we run over 1,000 loads a week, so we have 1,000 calls at least a week where we're asking those questions. And instead of trying to pick out 10 a week and finding out if maybe the question was asked or not, we can look at the compliance. It can show us which calls were uncompliant or didn't meet those requirements, and we can just find those calls and listen to them to figure out, was there a valid reason it wasn't asked, maybe, wrong number or whatever, or was the requirement actually not met? So it allows us to be very specific and pinpoint the calls that we need to listen to, instead of just hand-picking, out of a batch of 1,000 and maybe catching one or maybe not.
Great application. And how long does it take you to set up a Playbook?
We did a little bit of trial and error, and it took us maybe 3 or 4 days to get it to where it was catching what we wanted to.
But it literally takes 10 minutes
Oh, yeah,
to go into
it took us not even 10 minutes. It took us 5 minutes. We just played with the wording a little bit. But so we would, it took us 5 minutes to create it. We let it give us results for a day, and then we did a little tweaking there. But, total actual work, less than a half an hour.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And Dialpad is not unique in this, right? In these bite-sized business benefits. We have lots of competitors who do things similar to us. You got Observe AI out here. You got Yellow AI. All of us do similar things in terms of giving you a very simple back end, and you just look at that business problem or look at that task that you want to automate, and in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes, it can be done. And then it's a matter of kind of training it and hardening it, right? And you guys were able to do that in 3 or 4 days. Now, the other thing that you guys are doing are uploads to the CRM. What are you doing there? Why did you do that? And how does that work?
So we use Salesforce very heavy, not only as a CRM, but our transportation management system, which is the application that logistics company uses. It is built on the Salesforce platform, so we're in that 99% of the day. And when we link them together, what it does is it automatically uploads not only a link to the transcription, but also a link to the recording to every record in Salesforce. So that if we have a couple different reasons. If we have a load that maybe 6 months from now we have to figure out what happened in that load, or was something discussed, was a charge discussed or a payment discussed, instead of trying to go back 6 months, figure out who had the call, which one of the many calls was that maybe discussed, we can actually just go into the load object in Salesforce, find that record, and all of the associated calls and transcriptions are there. And then from the sales side, like you said, sales people, they're there for maybe 18 months. In many industries, but ours also, sometimes the prospecting cycle can be a couple of years because there are contracts involved. So there may be a rep that's worked with a company for a couple years, or maybe we've had 3 or 4 reps work with this company before we're able to turn them into a customer. And while those transitions are taking place, the newer rep that's taking over will be able to go into that Salesforce account and see all of the conversations that have been had, not just notes, because we did notes and it was, left voicemail with Mark, or talk to Mark, he said call back next week, or, 2 sentences. This actually allowed us to have the full conversation in the records right there that they could reference and see exactly what was discussed, exactly what the next steps were, and everything.
So 2 things here. We have a full transcript, and you don't want to put that in Salesforce because Salesforce is going to annihilate you on storage costs. But we would post a link to the full transcript, and then a 2, 3, 4 paragraph AI-based summary of that conversation. Because if sales reps are leaving after 18 months, and half of your customer service reps are gone in 1 year, you don't want those conversations to leave with them. Those conversations are gold. You need to be able to track those, know what was said, to be able to follow up. And as the new sales rep, I want to be able to look at that summary and say, well, that's interesting. I'm going to click into the full transcript because I want to know what was specifically said on that call. And one of the other stats that's interesting, only 35% of what a sales rep does in a given day is actually sales. A lot of overhead, right? But yet at the same time, one of our best AEs for Dialpad, Chris Knapp, is here. Chris, did it happen if it's not in Salesforce? Nope. If it's not in Salesforce, it didn't happen. So we're all over Chris. Why aren't you more productive, but why aren't you putting more in Salesforce? So this automates that task for Chris, and we can hand that off to or hand that off to our API. It can be sent to ServiceNow, Zendesk, wherever you want it to go. We have a really nice integration with Dynamics as well. So lots can be done there to automate that task. And we didn't do a big sweeping 2-year project. In fact, this is something that you implement and the salespeople don't even know that you implemented it, right? Yeah. But they know when they see all their notes there, gosh, I didn't have to type in all those notes.
That was one thing that that really I enjoyed about the process is that, and I know that this is sort of one of my sayings is, I hate that now everybody is trying to implement AI for the sake of implementing AI. We get the number of vendors I have that call me that, say they can automate workflows with AI and they can do this with AI, and it's like, I don't have the time to try to figure out where I can use it, just so I can say, yeah, we're using it too. So, this was something that it was like the problem existed first, and, I knew what capabilities Dialpad had, and I always knew that we were going to go into them, and someone came to me with a problem, and I thought, oh, I wonder if we can use the AI for that. It took, like I said, a total of maybe 30 minutes of work. We didn't have to spin anything up. It was our phone system that we already had that was already there. But I know you don't want to talk about Dialpad a lot, but I will say one thing that we really liked, one of the differentiators that we saw is you talk about the link to the recordings and the transcriptions. They're stored for, I think it's 7 years, which was, I think the most we saw out of anybody else was 12 months, and you could pay for longer. But 7-year standard was awesome to have all that information there.
Being a Google spin-out helps a little bit in that. Google Ventures sits on our board to this day. So, and you have not implemented real-time assist cards yet.
We have not. I'm sure we will, and it's one of those things where
you're breaking my heart.
We'll get there. We'll get there. When we first went with Dialpad, I saw I saw all these potentials, and it was all things that I know that we would eventually use, and we've piecemeal been starting to add them all in, and I'm sure that one is probably going to be next. I'll let you talk about how that works.
Well, Ralph will show that stuff in a little bit. He's going to demo this stuff, show you guys how to set it up. But really what we wanted to get at, and I think BM2 Freight is really just the perfect case study for Dialpad and this concept of crawl, walk, run in this AI journey. Not some big sweeping project that's going to move everybody's cheese and make everybody mad, but how can we find these wins, these bite-sized business benefits, and improve productivity, reduce expenses? So we're going to have, Ralph, you're going to demo a couple things, right?
Yep.
So do you have a mic? Excellent.
Yeah, I do.
We're
you guys
good.
hear me? All right, cool. You ready? All right, guys, cool. So let's actually hop into a demo, and to be honest, this is one of my favorite things to absolutely show, just because of what is going to be happening in real time. This is not a pre-recording. This is stuff that's happening right now. Now, Kevin, quick question. How much time did you guys actually save when you started to use the Salesforce auto post, when the stuff started just getting posted there? Instead of them typing the notes, how much time were you saving on average?
If you asked our account reps, they would probably say hours a day. I think realistically what it was is they weren't putting notes in, or they were putting poor notes in, and now we're actually getting good data in there.
Absolutely. And that brings me to this equation here. So I'm going to look up a customer, Bill Nye the Science Guy. I hope you guys get the reference. But this is the stuff that we were talking about. This is the stuff that is going to be shown to these guys. So quick raise of hands. How many times have you guys had a conversation with someone and you totally forgot that conversation and you wish you would have wrote it down somewhere? A lot. I do that enough, and every time I talk to Dan, I have to sometimes go back in and read this recap. And this is exactly what it looks like, guys. So as an example, imagine every conversation that you're having, whether that's a small conversation or even an hour-long conversation, we take all that context that happens, compile it into a quick summary, and even provide things like action items. So what AI is doing here is that it's just simplifying what conversations you're having. And that's the insights that Kevin was talking about, that we can simply post this into Salesforce and call it a day. It's easy. And imagine if you're not using Salesforce, you're using something else, or maybe you developed your own CRM. Same data could be posted there because we have the ability to do something like that. This is a game changer for me. And what's really nice, too, is that you can even do things like calendar. So if you guys have a calendar, whether you're Office 365 or Google Shop, I can actually click on links in here, and it would schedule a calendar invite, which is really nice. And Kevin, you guys use that searching capability quite often, right? You probably need to look up specific orders, or maybe was this someone that they actually said this on the call? And to Kevin's point, that's something that we can actually do in Dialpad. Check this out. Imagine if you had the ability to search a conversation just by a keyword. So as an example, I'm going to type in the word English. So I do a lot of demos. Oh, maybe not English. Let me do pricing, not pricing. What did I, hold on. Yeah, I might be in the wrong one. Here, I'll actually just do the word transcription just to show you. Transcription. This is what happens when we do too many demos. All right, well, apparently, yeah, this is the wrong instance, but here, I'll actually do a more broader search. How about that? Let's look at the word pricing. Check this out. I can skim through all of my AI recaps, or even text messages that contain that word, or even phone calls. I click on that call, check this out. Brings me directly to that conversation. I could then pull this up in full-blown view, and I could read the entire transcript from there. So being able to just do a simplistic search of just looking up a keyword is a big benefit, and that's exactly what BM2 is doing. You guys are doing something like that, but maybe even at a bigger level, right? Do you guys run any reports that you look up a specific keyword to see how often that was mentioned?
Yes. I'll add that there's one canned report that has become a competition in the office, and it's swearing. It probably isn't the competition in the way that you'd think it should be, but they like to see who has the high score.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. And this is exactly what he's talking about, guys. I could come here and just imagine, this is just from a simplistic standpoint. I want you guys to take a look at the number 28. I have a total of 28 calls, right? Well, what about the word swearing, right? How many times has someone said S word, right? Or whatever it might be. You could just simply type in that word, search it, check this out. 17 out of those 28 calls had conversations with this word at least mentioned one time. It's huge, because now you can actually identify, maybe are there trends calling in, or people calling in about the same thing? Are there issues with the shipment? Are they even getting the MC number right? All that stuff can easily be pulled here because we're using AI for something like that. The goal of our AI journey is not to replace people, but let's enable them. Let's get them better with this AI. And that's exactly what we're here to do. Was there some other, oh yeah, Salesforce. I wanted to actually show you guys the Salesforce thing. This is real. Let's pull that up. We'll drag this over. So take a look at this. This is what they're dealing with on a daily basis, okay? This is Salesforce. And Notice how Dialpad is embedded within Salesforce. So as an example, if I pull up Bill Nye the Science Guy's record, I do have the capability to see whether I sent him a text or was there an actual phone call that was logged. If I click on it, it includes that link to that call summary. And like you guys were doing, you guys have playbooks, so you can actually see the call summary in that playbook there if they had one, right? So I'm not in your guys' instance for privacy reasons, but that's the whole point. We could easily post all that data to the CRM, and boom, it's there. I have it, and I'm sure that saved you guys just a ton of time in general.
Yeah, and the one thing that I'll add that the number of demos that I've seen where you're like, oh, this is amazing. How do I get started? And they're like, well, there's a 6-month implementation process, and we've got to train models on everything, and this was just there. We obviously had to implement the phone system.
Yeah.
But we did nothing else for all of this to work. It was already there. It worked. When we decided to use playbooks, it took 30 minutes to set up, and there was no real lift to do it, which is my favorite part of it.
Oh yeah, especially being in IT,
And-
right?
This gets back to the theme of crawl, walk, run, right? Bite-sized business benefits. We're picking small wins, we're addressing them. Sales reps are leaving after 18 months on average. 52% of customer service agents are churned. How can we make their life easier? How can we capture all that data that leaves when they leave, right? So we're not boiling the ocean with some big giant project. And just like I said earlier, we have 5 or 6 competitors who can do the same sorts of things. So, but at Dialpad, we think in terms of those bite-sized business benefits. And Chris, we've got another case study here. You're working on a project with us with one of the largest real estate companies in America, and they had some problems, and you guys have done a big consulting engagement with them. Talk some about that.
Sure. So I think this epitomizes this crawl, walk, run approach because obviously you can see a ton of capabilities within various platforms. We're seeing some of it with Dialpad today, but their approach to this was we're having a ton of issues for our sales reps out in the field, on the go, traveling across, meeting their customers at different homes. We're having issues with connectivity. Sales reps can't be heard. Like, we need some creative solutions in rural locations on how we're actually making these phone calls. We're spotty integration, writing back to Dynamics is their CRM. And so just overall reliability within a phone system. And so their approach, kind of epitomizing this phased approach, crawl, walk, run, was let's understand what our minimum viable product is for a new solution. And that's our immediate search. But before we go ahead and jump into a new UCaaS, new CCaaS player, because that's what they did during COVID. Everyone scrambled. This is kind of their second iteration in the UCaaS, CCaaS space, is let's understand what the art of the possible is in the future. We may not bite everything off at once, but we understand our MVP, and let's talk about the art of the possible and partner with a provider who can meet that minimum viable product in an effective and efficient way, but also kind of provide us that beautiful, shiny future with all this AI embedded in it. So they have a great long-term vision in phase 2 of that project right now with focused on their sales folks. But just wanted to kind of emphasize that regardless of where you're at, focusing on this crawl, walk, run approach, and you can take this off in bite-sized chunks I think is key.
And phase 1 was they want SMS text and the voice call summaries to log to the customer record in Microsoft Dynamics.
Correct. So, these sales reps, like I said, are on the go. They're making calls from their mobile device. One, you got to think about the value of your sales reps. Like, what does the future sales rep look like? You're not banging on keyboards, taking notes. These things are being transcribed for you. Like, where is that value for a sales rep most important? And so that, obviously, making sure they're spending their time wisely, but then they're also on the go. So they need something that's reliable. And so, that was phase 1 is, freeing up the sales rep's time with something that consistently and effectively writes back to the CRM.
And then phase 2 will be playbooks for the salespeople. to cover certain topics, and then also something that we call real-time assist card. And I know you've got one queued up, don't you?
I do.
Real-time assist. Basically what real-time assist is it takes about 45 seconds to do this. You type it in, here are the trigger words, and here's what I want to pop up. So David Goodwin, owner of ATC back here, somebody calls into one of his folks and says, what kind of telephones do you sell? We can pop up a card that says Polycom, Yay, Lincoln, Grandstream. And here are all the models that we support. And it takes about 45 seconds to do one of these, so you can do them for your sales reps, for your service reps. I have a customer in Minnesota who took a full month to create real-time assist cards because they used to have a binder that they gave every sales rep that was this thick. And I have children in their 30s, so if they go to work as inside sales in your company and you hand them a 6-inch binder, I can hear my youngest son saying, that's stupid, right? I mean, can't you hear it, right? So instead, when customers ask questions, these real-time assist cards are popping up. So that's going to be phase 2 for this real estate company, whether it's interest rates for the day, because these things can be changed on the fly. But again, it gets back to this theme of crawl, walk, run. So Raf, I know you have a real-time assist demo. And again, we're not the only provider who does this. Just trying to get everybody to think in terms of bite-sized bullets of business benefits.
I'll just add while he's pulling that up, in this specific use case, there were still a lot of questions when moving to this new solution of how are we going to effectively manage these transcriptions and these call recordings from a privacy perspective and a security perspective. It's a huge conversation, and they didn't have that figured out before they went and made this decision, because you need to have that discussion and a governance strategy around that, regardless of what solution you go with. But again, just kind of reiterating the crawl, walk, run approach. We know, regardless of our movement into the future, whatever pathway we go down, we have to have this conversation. But it was mentioned in the previous breakout session in here too. It's like you don't have to have, if you're waiting for everything to be perfectly aligned and perfectly set up to take that next step, you're never going to move forward and you're going to get left behind. And so you need to do it responsibly and have a plan. But if you're waiting for everything to be perfectly aligned and perfectly set up, you'll never take that next step. So, and there are ways to systematically approach these types of projects.
Cool. Good stuff, guys. And really, let's show an actual phone call with what we're talking about here. So check this out. And I answer this call. Right as I answered this call, you're going to see it. My voice is being transcribed in real time. This is that real-time transcription we were talking about, right? So you see it being transcribed, all that cool stuff. Now, we talked about RTAs and playbooks. So with the AI that we have, we can populate that battle card that allows them to see the same exact information. Now, how many times have you guys called into a contact center, show of hands, and they give you different answers each time? Happens all the time, right? What happens if we can have one source of truth? And this is where this comes from. So I'm talking to Bill, and Bill says, hey, Raf, actually, I need some help troubleshooting my phones. You mind helping me out a little bit? Troubleshooting is a keyword that I have set up. I'll do shipping. I'm going to try shipping.
You're on the wrong screen.
No, I'm not. Oh, it should pop up. Of course. Demos, guys, live demos. It would typically populate in the assist tab. Let me just refresh it real quick. Sometimes hotel Wi-Fi is spotty. All right, we'll reconnect that. All right, Raf, I'm actually calling in, so I need to ask you about some shipping, or I need help troubleshooting my phones, or give me a manager, right? So the point is we can mention these words, and boom, real-time assist card populated. I can now see that information as a rep, and I can deliver that information back to the consumer. So the point of that is it could be used for anything, whether I'm support, sales, it doesn't really matter. The point is I have a central source of truth, and I have access to this information. And a bigger benefit to that is we talked about playbooks, right? What if I had a step-by-step guide that allows me to see and what questions I should be asking? right? So I can create a customized playbook, or I even created one for BM2. Where is it at? Right there? Yep. Check this out. I'm a consumer, and I'm talking to Bill now. I'm talking about shipments. So I say, hey, Bill, do you mind actually giving me the truck name? Do you mind verifying that for me? Bill can say, yeah, Raph, actually the truck name was from Swift Inc. So now, not only did you see that that box got auto-checked, but check that out. The customer provided the truck name. So it can even do things like context collection, so we can actually collect the data that the customer is saying, and we can use that information to help benefit either the rep's sake or just the company as a whole, because what Kevin was doing previously was they were looking at adherence to this playbook, and they're trying to understand, are they actually asking these questions within compliance? Boom, I can find out whether the reps are doing that now. And this is happening in real time. This is right now. It's really insane stuff. And that I just want to follow this all up with the final piece here, and I want to show sentiment analysis. So this is where sentiment becomes pretty big for some. How many of you guys have received a survey, and even if you had decent service, you're not going to respond to it? Yeah, I do that often, right? We call that the heroes and zeros situation. It's either the best experience you had or it's the worst experience you had, but if you have an in-between, you're not going to spend time doing that. What if we could use AI to help us identify whether a customer is satisfied or not, regardless if they responded to a survey? And this is where the sentiment analysis comes into play. So as you can see, it's neutral. I'm having a conversation with Bill, and then Bill all of a sudden starts saying, actually, Raph, I'm super frustrated and upset that they keep calling in over and over again. It's been nothing but a negative experience, and if you can't get me your manager, I will cancel my services right now. I'm beyond frustrated. So a couple things are going to happen. You're going to see that that neutral flips to negative. I now get an alert as a manager that something is happening in real time on this phone call. I can hop into this. Oh, well, they talked about manager. What's going on? I can press that button. It loads the transcript, puts me to that specific portion of the phone call, and I didn't even have to listen to the call to understand this happened. I could just read the transcript. This is elevating the experience for managers everywhere, because regardless, I don't have to do micromanagement. I don't have to sit there and hound them for certain things. I could just be alerted when stuff like this happens. It gets triggered on a call. Imagine what that could do just for any business. And this is why we're talking about how AI can start off for such a small task and then just become much larger, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It really doesn't. So that is really why I wanted to show you guys today. Chris,
We've talked
Kevin.
enough. Do you guys have any questions?
Yes.
Any questions about AI, about ATC? And I will say this, ATC has more certified deployment managers than any other partner in the Dialpad ecosystem. These guys do a great job of deploying services. Go ahead.
Are you going to record and do the transcript of what I say?
No, I turned it off.
Okay. So basically my questions, first of all, that slide of consideration, that was a very good slide. My question is first on ROI. Sometimes we want the experimentation to happen without ROI, right? So is ROI that important for a AI solution? That's my first question. And second question is, what you are doing here, sending and receiving the transcripts over AI, are you sending it to a public-based model? Are you creating a private deployment of LLM? Because there are huge security and data concerns around sending your information outside in the cloud, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So you actually have some valid concerns. So a couple things. One big benefit about Dialpad is we own our entire tech stack, so our language learning model is ours. We don't use OpenAI, we don't use Google Vortex. We've trained it all in-house, and because of that, we can deliver a 92 to 95% accuracy rating on about 4 languages currently, so English, French, Spanish, and German. We're going to end up doing things like Chinese, Mandarin, different dialects. We actually hire people specifically just to speak the language to train the AI model. Now, what's really unique about this too, guys, is that the call does not have to be recorded to be transcribed either. So if you worry about compliance standards or things of that nature, we can have call recording turned off. The call can still be transcribed, but if you want it turned off, of course, it can still be turned off as well. And a little bit about us is we do maintain compliance standards. So HIPAA, we offer PII redaction. So if anyone accidentally says a social security number or credit card or anything that's considered personal, we can immediately redact that from the transcript, and it doesn't get stored anywhere. And final thing, we don't share your data because we own everything. There's no need for us to share data anywhere.
So many of our competitors, when they talk about transcription, they'll talk about near real time because they're doing a call recording, they're sending it to somebody else, they're getting it back. We don't send it anywhere. And Raf, I was trying to get to that slide that shows our stack there. Anyway,
Yes.
so other questions? But that's a great question, thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming. It's 2:45, so I know, but I always hate when people go over, keep you, you want to go get a coffee and go to the bathroom. So if there's anybody who wants to talk about applications or anything, we're here. Chris, you going to wrap?
Yeah, thanks everyone. Raf, Dan, Kevin, appreciate your time in doing this for us today. We've got about a 30-minute break, so it's 2:45 right now, 3:15. We'll start the afternoon keynote in the main ballroom, so 30 minutes to grab some more coffee, water, hit the restroom, network, talk with different providers out there. So thanks everyone again, and we'll see you around.
Thank you, guys.